What's up, everybody? This is Ming Chen from AMC's Comic Book Men, and this is Project Nerd.
Hello, Project Nerd Nation. This is Dane Michael for Nerdcast, and we've got a very special episode of Nerdcast. I'm here with LaDios Muhammad, who is the star of Prudence, which is Rudi Womack's horror short, which has played at Tallgrass Film Festival that Project Nerd covered, and also at the Netherland Film Festival in Colorado, which was on November 6th. And first of all, welcome, LaDios. Thank you for joining us. And I do want to let everybody know to stick around because we have a interview that we conducted from the live stream booth at Tallgrass Film Festival with Rudi, and it's about, I think he was there about 35 or 40 minutes with us, so he was chatting us up and having a great time. So that will follow this interview. But first I want to ask you, because I just watched Prudence for a second time, okay. I want to ask you how you found out about this project and what led you to this.
Oh, wow. It was totally divine intervention. My friend, he's also a colleague of mine. He moved to Atlanta, and we're both theater backgrounds as well as film. And so he sent me hey, there's an audition. Someone had forwarded to him because they thought he was local, to him to see if he knew any actors, female Black actors, and he forwarded it back to me. And so I submitted that way. And everything is history. I mean, I guess I nailed it because Rudi he loved the audition tape, and I did some extra coaching to make sure I'm doing it right. I had my friend look at it. I was like, wait, should I do it like this? So that's how I learned about the project, because I think he sent the auditions to theater casting agent, theater casting directors versus film casting directors. So.
What was he looking for in terms of the audition? Because there is, it's a wordless film. I mean, almost wordless, I would say.
Yeah.
For Prudence's part, anyway. So what was he looking for, and what did you know about the story when you were auditioning for it? Did you read the whole thing? Was the script presented?
No. when you audition, you get a side, and usually sometimes the sides are either in the script or they're not. But I just knew it was something that was a horror story, and it was kind of witchy. And he was looking for someone who the thing with film is you need to be able to act without acting. Not necessarily using words, whereas theater is the opposite. It's big. So whatever I did, I touched on the facial expressions and the details of what he was looking for, and someone who's definitely flexible. Because he was amazing. We had a meetup after I booked it, and he came and we had coffee, and we spent an hour, and he was like, I just want to let you know we're going to be filming in 30-degree weather in the snow. And I was like, whoa. And I had to walk barefooted, and all that's real snow. So
I was going to ask because there's times when it looks like it's when she's walking around, when she first leaves the house, it looks like it's falling so perfectly that I'm like, is that CGI snow?
That was
snow on the ground.
That was CGI snow where it was real ice. They put some ice and made it come down, okay. But that was real snow on the ground. And we were filming 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning in the snow. And he was just amazing. So he'd be like, okay, get her boots on. It was so cold. But it was a very nice challenge to see, to take my acting level to the next level of just blending in and conforming to that character. The character wasn't thinking about snow. There was very minimal dialogue, and I had to look like I'm not cold and I was freezing. My feet were I literally, before we started training, about a month, I would go to the parks because it's still cold in the streams, and put my feet in the water to see how long I can handle the cold water hitting my feet. But it still was cold.
Where was this? Where in Colorado was this film?
Oh, geez. You know what? I'm so sorry. I don't remember. It's not far from here. It's probably couple hours from Denver, maybe hour and a half. I'm so sorry, I don't remember, but it was a
So you were in
historical.
Denver?
Yeah, well, it wasn't in Denver. It was outside of Denver, about an hour or so, and it was we were at a historical location. So the cabin that we filmed in was a real cabin. It was not staged. That was a real authentic cabin. Everything was authentic. But it's I think it's a historical place that he got, and it was amazing. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it was definitely way colder there than it was in Denver that night.
So that kind of thing had to, like, I mean, the authenticity of the cabin had to, I mean, make it much more easier for you, I guess, to put yourself into that role, because it's what, like 1893, I think, is the setting for this.
Yeah, because
Well, 1893, but I don't want to spoil anything. But that's we can.
I mean, everything in the cabin was originally built. I mean, I think there was like a bear rug or something. I was like, is this real? This real fur? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. Not that I'm vegan or anything, but I was like, oh my God, these are real animals. I mean, everything hanging up. It was amazing. It was so amazing.
So are you by chance a fan of, or have you at least seen some of the original episodes of the Twilight Zone series from the 60s?
Oh yeah, I was definitely a fan of the Twilights.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So what I like about Prudence, and it definitely has that element. It has that element of, even if we're Rudi to expand the story, I think it could become like an episode of the Twilight Zone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so that's what I loved about it. But even starting out in black and white, the photography, it just has that feeling. And for the viewers out there, if you like the episode with Agnes Moorehead, who was a staple of Orson Welles' acting troupe, it's called Nothing in the Dark. That is a wordless episode of the Twilight Zone. And I forgot to ask Rudi, because I hadn't seen it at the time that we interviewed him. But I forgot to ask him if he was at all influenced by that, or if he's seen that, because there's some great parallels between Prudence and Nothing in the Dark. So
that's interesting you said that. And I'm not sure if I'm crossing over. I feel like it's Twilight Zone, or it could have been Alfred Hitchcock, but I know I'm thinking it is Twilight Zone, because I did mention this to him when we were discussing the film. And I said, this reminds me of an episode, and I believe it's in Twilight Zone, where this woman goes into it's a little bit more dialogue, but she goes into a jewelry store to purchase something, and then she goes to return it because it was broken, and they were like, go to this floor, go to this floor, go to this floor. And then
so that is the After Hours.
Yes, you know what I'm talking about. So
he was spoiler alert for everybody.
I don't want to
really
say,
old
but
episode. She was a mannequin.
She was a mannequin. And then I was like, this, so you know what I'm talking about. It reminds me of when she found out she was a mannequin. So yeah, so you know that.
So that was Anne Francis was in that episode. Yeah.
Wow. So I was right. It was Twilight. And I was like, did you see that? So I don't know if he's seen it, but yeah, I get what you're saying, because it was like, she didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, so the one that I believe the one I said was Nothing in the Dark, but I think I got the episode wrong. The one I'm talking about is called The Invaders. And it's like a woman who lives by herself, and she hears noises in and around her home, outside her home. I'm going to give the ending away because it's not like a huge spoiler, but there's like these tiny little astronauts that are like invading her home in like a spaceship like the size of her palm,
Oh my goodness. She's hearing things, huh?
So yeah, really cool. Definitely, I think anybody can look at a lot of elements of horror movies or sci-fi movies today and say, the Twilight Zone could have been the influence for that, or it just could be because Twilight Zone covered so much ground that that's just a coincidence. But
my understanding was it was a little bit, he went a little bit more in depth, like about historically, because I said, well, why did you want specifically a Black woman? And he said a lot of the history of there were Black settlers and cowboys African Americans, cowboys, and settlers that really resided here in Colorado, which I knew. And so they're not in the history. And so he wanted to kind of focus on that. Now, why he went the direction he did without giving a spoiler alert, that
Yeah,
might be Twilight Zone. But it's
exactly.
all like, for me, I like all that stuff. So this was my first horror short, and I really enjoyed it. I love the research he did, and everything that he did, was significant. It wasn't just, oh, we're going to make a horror film. It was very significant, you know.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. I see in his future maybe directing some of Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone.
that would be so
maybe.
cool. And I love Jordan Peele. I love
Yeah.
him.
And
Totally.
you can star in his next episode. So.
Fingers crossed. Well, I'm hoping, honestly, just speaking with Rudi, I'm like, are you thinking about making this a full feature? Because this would be amazing. And he's like, I don't know. So
I would love to see it fleshed out. Yeah, that would be.
I would too. That would, I mean, there's just so many ways you can play it. And so,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So aside from potentially working with Rudi again, which it sounds like you would be happy to do,
Oh, yeah.
are there any other projects you have upcoming that you'd be able to tell us about?
Yeah. Right now, I am working on an independent film. I can't tell you the name, but it's a investigative film. And I have 2 plays coming up, one called Sordid Lies, and then I'm doing a one-woman show about Merle Evers. So we started the tour in 2019, but when the pandemic, we were going to go coast to coast and out of the country to Ireland worldwide, and the pandemic delayed it. So now we are starting all over, and we do our first performance since the pandemic, December 3rd and 5th. Super excited. It's about a historical, incredible trailblazer female, Merle Evers, who was the wife of Medgar Evers.
Okay.
And actually, he was assassinated. And it took 30 years before they vindicated or they convicted the killer. And the only other performance ever done on Merle Evers, by the way, she's still alive. She's in Los Angeles, or like in Southern California, was when Whoopi Goldberg did it in Mississippi Burning, Mississippi Burning, I think it was.
Oh, Mississippi Burning.
Mississippi Burning.
Have you seen, or has she seen the performance?
We've been trying to get her team to get her to see their performance. So we are, after we launch this one, we plan to try to get this in theaters, or, stage theaters in California. And we have been trying to get a hold of her team. They approved they approved it. They said it was fine, but we just haven't gotten her to come. We've been emailing and everything. So it's been amazing. So
that would be a total thrill for.
It would be a thrill.
For everybody,
I want her to see it so bad. And, so we approached it a different dynamic, because she was a very reserved, very polished woman. Even when the day she found out that her husband's murderer was convicted, she was just very reserved with her being ecstatic. But we're showing this kind of totally different angle of her just not holding it together. I mean, the inside, the emotions. And so it was very informative, because she went from being an activist to a politician. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
So where is the first performance going
so
to be?
It's going to be here in Colorado at Denver Christian Bible Church. This will be the second time we've performed there. In fact, the first time we've performed in Denver was there. So we're going to bring it back, and we're doing 2 shows. We partnered up with Emerge Colorado, which is a nonprofit organization which trains women of color to be on the ballot to become Democratic politicians. So, yeah, awesome. Super excited. Mm-hmm.
Great. And then as far as Prudence goes, did you happen to attend the Netherlands Film Festival? I know that was in person this year.
Was that the one in Longmont?
The one that was just on November 6th, on this past Saturday.
No, I didn't attend that one. Okay. I did attend the one in Longmont. I wanted to get to the one in New Orleans, and I missed the one in LA, they've had so many.
Yeah, he's taking it ever. Like when he approached us at Tallgrass, he had his little card that had the Prudence card that he made up,
Yeah.
promotional card, and I was like, I know this because your actress who plays Prudence wants us to interview her. So
Yeah.
here we are, and I was like, well, we're gonna interview you too, and
Great.
so, awesome.
So how was it? How was the film festival in the Netherlands? Was it a big turnout?
So I didn't. So I'm actually in Iowa, so I
okay.
was not able to make it out this past weekend for that. I believe it is a small town.
Okay.
And a single theater, but I've heard that it's big. That's what one of the other interviewees has told me.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I guess we'll have to hear from some others. But
well, maybe we'll get to Iowa, huh?
There you go. I'm sure Rudi isn't done promoting this yet, but he does need to make it into a feature. So that's what I'll try and talk him into next. So
and I'll put a buzz in his ear too.
Well, thank you for your time, and it's been great chatting with you. And where can people find more about you, social media, and so on and so forth?
Sure. Everything is in LaDios Muhammad. I'm on Instagram, on YouTube, also on Facebook. I also have my website which is valorliving.org. If you want to sign up on my newsletter, you'll always know what's coming out.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time. And don't forget, folks, stick around for our interview with Rudi right after this.
Thank you.
Coming in. First guest.
Awesome.
First guest.
Let's do this. How are we doing this? Who we having?
Well, I know this
Am I
guy.
scooting over?
I know who this guy is.
Oh, you got to come in, join us, right?
Rudi.
Do I need to switch my...
Rudi. This is how you welcome RD Womack.
Hi, everyone. Good
Hi,
to be
Rudi.
here.
So you've got a film called Prudence.
I do. Yes.
In the festival. It's in the is it in the horror shorts competition?
In the horror / bloody shorts is what it's called, although mine's not bloody at all, but fits the horror category.
When is that block of films?
It's tomorrow, Saturday, at 5:45 at Groover Labs.
Excellent.
So it's right up the street from here.
I love it. And we were talking about this. I know most of us, live in Colorado, but you have a really good connection in your movie to Colorado. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. So we actually filmed in Fort Lupton, Colorado. So it's about 30 minutes north of Denver. There's a very interesting place up there called the South Platte Historic Society, if I got all that correct. And it's quite interesting. They do a lot of reenactments. They do a lot of preservation work for historic buildings and so on and so forth. So if you actually go to their property, they have a fort. They have a school from the early 1900s. They're rebuilding a barn from the 1800s. And we shot at a cabin, which was built in the 1850s or thereabouts. And so the cabin is period accurate. All the stuff inside of the cabin is period accurate. So it made one heck of a location to shoot in.
That's all. Is this your first time at Tallgrass?
Yeah, this is my first time here. I've been wanting to come to this festival for quite some time, so it's quite a privilege to actually be here, especially with a horror film, because I know it's such a small little block, so it's kind of hard to get in. So
right.
I was pretty excited to be here. Yeah.
Give us like your one sentence slug line for Prudence.
In the winter of 1897, Prudence hears strange chanting outside of her cabin.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh.
I mean,
I'm in.
A cliffhanger, like, come on, man. So you've been to festivals before then?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
you made it like, oh, cool. Like, I've been wanting to come to Tallgrass, but you've done other festivals.
Yeah, I've been doing films since I was yay tall. So I've been to a lot of festivals. Most recently, I was at Dances with Films in Los Angeles. So I was very excited to be at that festival. Next week, I'm going to be in Utah and Provo for Film Quest. So right now, I'm just kind of deep in the festival run.
All with Prudence, or do you have other stuff out?
All of it with Prudence, except I do have a film that's playing in Texas. That's a family drama about a dog. And that's in December. So
is that a full feature or is that a short as well?
No, that one's a short. It's called Chippy. It's literally, I shot it in my living room with my dog. So it's the exact opposite of Prudence in every possible way.
That's fun. Now I'm curious about
Is
it.
your dog's name Chippy?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's like
She wouldn't respond to anything else, so we were just like, fine, whatever. That's what it's gonna be.
Tell us about your involvement with the Wyoming Film Festival.
Yeah.
Great. So the Wyoming International Film Festival started by a man. His name is Alan O'Ashey, and he was there to champion up and coming filmmakers from Wyoming. I'm originally from Wyoming, so that's why it's real near and dear to my heart. But Alan has retired. He's moving on to greener pastures, and he was just kind of going to let the festival go. And I was like, no, you can't do that. It's so important. Filmmakers need a voice. They need a place to connect with other filmmakers, other creatives. And so graciously, Alan allowed me to step in. So this is actually going to be my first year as executive director of the film festival. And we're already making some big changes. We changed our venue to a larger venue to accommodate a bigger audience. We expanded from a 2-day festival to a 3-day festival now. So we're going to allow more films in, have more filmmakers. You were talking about documentaries. We actually partnered with the International Documentary Association.
See, that's awesome.
So we're trying to champion nonfiction filmmaking.
I love it. Yeah.
And we're really moving forward. So I'm very excited to be doing that.
Where in Wyoming does that take place?
That's in Cheyenne. So it's the capital. It's only 2 hours north of Denver. So y'all should drop in.
No, we talked last night. I believe, if I recall correctly, you said you were also a ranch hand at one point.
Yeah, I worked at Terry Bison Ranch for a little bit, which was grueling and terrible.
We're still fact checking all of this. Like, I'm sorry. Respect, but
everybody works at Terry Bison Ranch at one point or another. It's like a rite of passage if you're from Cheyenne.
Is it?
Yeah.
I feel like that's the next documentary, the new nonfiction.
It's either that or you work at one of the fireworks stands that's right across the border.
Yep.
There's going to be a documentary, Ranch Hands turned filmmakers.
Yeah.
So it'll be like about you and probably John Ford, I imagine.
Well, that's awesome. I think that's what we were talking about earlier, guys. The biggest thing, we went to the gala last night.
Yeah,
saw an amazing tag that said Filmmaker, and we started talking. And it's amazing how that little conversation can lead to so many more things here at Tallgrass.
And it's really incredible how people who are kind of from one region don't run into each other, but they go somewhere else, like Tallgrass, and they meet up. I love that kind of stuff. I absolutely love that.
I want to bring it back because you said that this was one that you've been wanting to come to.
Yeah.
So you've known about this festival.
Yeah, I first found out about it actually when I was in film school. One of my classmates had played in this. God, man, this was back in 2013 or so. So it was quite some time ago. One of my classmates played in this festival. Just would not stop talking about how great this festival is, all the people, all the wonderful filmmakers, and of course, the films themselves and the quality of them. And so ever since then, it's been on my radar, and I've really wanted to come. So I'm so lucky to be here.
Is it living up to what
Oh, yeah.
you've been told?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that there's so much hospitality, the fact that like right now there's a panel of producers going on. Right after this, there's another shorts block. There's 2 documentaries, and then there's a couple of narrative features playing on later on. Like the schedule is just so packed.
There's an incredible daily live stream.
Yes.
Wow.
For example.
For example.
No, this is my first time to ever come to this film festival too. I mean, these guys have been coming for years. This is my first time coming, and I'm blown away by it.
Yeah, is it living up for you?
Oh yeah, I'm super excited to see how the rest of the weekend plays out, and it's really been fun to just chat with people. And
what's also your first film festival
ever? Yeah, I've never been to a film festival.
She's never been to like a
It's all downhill from here.
I started with a good one.
This is my first ever film festival as well. Yes.
Really?
So
that surprises me, actually.
So
you're such a film buff.
all other film festivals that I attend are going to have a lot to live up to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you hit it right. Like, I think the biggest thing we've always appreciated is the volunteers.
Yeah.
And the community support and the engagement from the community in this area has been amazing. The gala last night, so were we at the Botanica or the Botanical Gardens? This is kinda like a
Botanica.
question for me.
All I know is I got stuffed in the back of a car and wound up at a party. So,
Whoa.
you know.
I hate when that happens.
It's a great start. we talked about this, like there's Botanica, and like I
Listen.
couldn't understand what was going on
Listen,
last night.
listen. It's a botanical gardens
Okay.
that they call Botanica.
Oh, so that's the name.
It's like a fun name for the botanical.
You didn't
gardens.
see the big sign when you drive
I
in
did
that
see
says Botanica?
and I might have crushed like a few trees that it was dealing with.
I thought you were gonna say.
I feel bad if like somebody walks.
I thought you were gonna say I
it was
might have-
dark. We were all hanging out next to the one tree that had a light.
Yeah.
under it,
Yeah,
just so
yeah,
we could see.
Yeah. Except I felt like I was around a campfire with a flashlight under my face. I was like, this can't be a
It
flattering.
was an "Are You Afraid of the Dark" kind of like night where we were just gathered there.
Carrie, Carrie, I got to tell you, I was pretty certain you were going to say, I might have crushed a few beers and couldn't remember it.
Oh yeah, that definitely
Well,
like.
that
Hey,
also happened.
Right.
there was a
But
lot
that
of
was
Stella.
later.
There was a lot of Stella coming out last night, and I was really appreciative. So it was so cool though. But it's been awesome. And you talk about this festival and what this festival does, for creatives. I had to ask like the other day, like when did we shorten it to creatives? Didn't it used to be like there were like creative people? Now it's just like every like tagline is now creative.
Carrie brought this up last night.
I feel like because multimedia and everything has expanded so dramatically, especially in the last like 3 decades in particular. It used to be if you were an artist, you had one discipline. Now I feel like most artists have to have multiple disciplines, and they also have to have some kind of business acumen
That's true.
in order to get their artwork out there, in order to make the connections, meet the right people, so on and so
That is
forth.
true.
So I feel like creatives is kind of the, I don't know, catch-all for all of that.
Kind of
Yeah.
an umbrella for everything that's underneath it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, especially, I work as an editor as a day job, and we even kind of break it down in the business of who's doing like the admin and who's doing the creative, because
Yeah.
the admin runs the business. They're the ones like, finding clients and doing budgets and all that
The
stuff.
boring
That's
stuff.
terrible.
The paperwork.
Industry term. is
Oh,
what you're
yeah.
saying.
Oh,
This
yeah.
isn't just somebody that, hey, he's a creative. This is an industry term that is used.
all the time, like even sitting down, like editing and everything. Sometimes you'll have the creative editor with the creative director, and then you'll have like the post team or the ad or the technical guys who come in and
They're like, make all these cuts that we just told you to.
make sure it works. It will play in Germany as well as the Philippines, as well as Canada, or wherever we're sending the video off to. So
You're totally right, though. You can have all the talent in the world, but nowadays you have to have an expanded skill set
Oh,
that does
absolutely.
include business, as part of it. You have to have that analytical sort of to get anywhere, because it's so competitive too.
oh, absolutely, and it's getting even more competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. That also means we have more avenues to get our work out, to meet people, to collaborate, so on and so forth. So, whatever. I'll take the bad with the good any day.
Yeah.
I'd rather be a
Yeah.
filmmaker now than 40 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It is, but that's a good point, though. There are a lot more avenues and channels for exposure now as a filmmaker that were probably more difficult,
Yeah.
50 years ago.
Well, I mean, even this right now, like way back in the day, you would have had to have a radio license and, invest $300,000 in gear and so on and so forth to do broadcasting.
Oh, Iggy did.
It just
$300,000 a year.
It's still.
Yeah.
well, there you go.
He didn't need him. I told him not to apply for him.
You didn't want me. I'm like, wait, you don't have a radio license? You couldn't just put it out there?
Yeah, you had to go to class and learn how to do Morse code.
I love it, man. That's what we've been talking about this festival. All of us, I think most of us know, like, we're all volunteers. We all do this out of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, how did it start for you? You said you've been in the industry for a while. You've been an editor. How did the whole entertainment scene start for you?
Oh man, I have the best story ever. So when I was just a little kid, we were actually living in Casper, Wyoming, and this was back when newspapers were still a thing.
I've heard of those, yeah.
And there's this big headline that Hollywood is going to come to Casper, and they're looking for extras and so on and so forth. And like, I got really excited. And I was begging my mom, can we go see? Can we go see? And they were shooting like way off in the prairie, like 2 hours away from the town or something. She was like, no, I'm not driving out there. And I wouldn't stop pestering her for a month. And finally she was like, fine, we'll go and see. So she takes me all the way out to a place called Hell's Half Acre to see a Hollywood movie be shot.
Oh.
And that movie was Starship Troopers.
No. Really? What a great experience.
Is that why Casper Van Dien was in it?
Probably.
Is that where he got his name from?
You know what? I have never made that connection until this moment right now, and it's kind of blown my mind.
Wow.
And then so like, of course, I wanted to see the movie when it came in. You know, they were in post-production forever on that film. And so, I don't know, I was like 8, 10, something like that. When the movie finally came out, and again, I was begging my parents, I want to see it, because we went to the desert and we shot, we see them shoot the thing. And they're like, no, it's rated R.
It's a pretty hard R too.
Yeah.
Like a really hard R. So they wouldn't let me see it. So one night I'm hanging out at my friend's house and his parents had rented it on Blockbuster, right? And so I waited till like 2 o'clock in the morning and snuck down into the living room and like rewound the tape and like dialed it to like 2 or 3 on the volume.
You're like
set,
next to
really
the television.
close to it, and just scared the shit out of me. That movie was terrifying.
That is awesome. Like, I think I've heard a good amount of stories. You definitely have one of the coolest ones that I've heard.
I got addicted.
I mean, you got
to
an
films,
MPH reference, right? Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, there you
Starship
go.
Troopers, right? And you said prairie, which I think we skipped over. You had to go to the prairie.
Yeah.
To like watch it being filmed.
I mean, that's Wyoming for you.
Yeah, that started it, and then from there.
I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, seeing all the guys in costumes. I mean, there was a million trucks out there. Of course, I'm a little kid. I didn't know what any of that was. I'm just like, oh my God, it's a Hollywood movie.
Oh yeah, that's so
I was
cool.
like, I'm going to do that for a living. So ever since then, that's what I've been aiming for.
That's absolutely amazing.
Where did you go to film school?
I went to Denver at first, and then I got my master's degree in Los Angeles at the New York Film Academy in Los Angeles.
Oh wow.
So their branch. And then I went and got a job and learned I didn't know anything.
I think that happens to a lot of people in any discipline after school.
That's right. Then the real world slaps you.
Yeah.
But no, I'm pretty fortunate. I had a lot of good mentors along the way. I've been able to meet a lot of good creatives.
Good creative.
And really just collaborate with a lot of very talented people, a lot of very knowledgeable people. And I really feel privileged, honestly, because there's so many incredible filmmakers and other artists and other people with incredible disciplines. And that's also one of the reasons I love going to film festivals, is you never know who you're going to meet. I just, at dances, met a woman who's been a journalist for 30 years or something to that effect. Started her career in Miami, then went to Buenos Aires. So she had an interesting story. She made a documentary. It was her first time as a filmmaker, but it was so interesting speaking to this person and getting her perspective, because she has an entire different life experience behind her before she got into film.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Yeah. So she had never made films or studied filmmaking. She had just done
beyond news reports and stuff like that, but nothing, as she was describing, with like character arcs or really focused on that real interpersonal connection instead of just like blatant fact reporting.
Yeah.
So it was quite interesting hearing her perspective and how she came along with that. So,
well, that's inspiring too for people who maybe have a really interesting background of their life, but they have never tried anything like filmmaking or something in that creative realm.
I mean, that's the thing, that good art comes from your experience. If you want to make good art, go out into the world and live.
Yeah.
Make some mistakes, break eggs. All that.
Sounds like my mom.
That's what go do it. And I think it's like the greatest call to action is like, well, how do I do it? Well, go do it.
Yeah,
go do it. Yeah,
right? I think that's kind of the biggest thing that we've seen throughout these festivals, and especially here. It's talking to people. It's the experience.
Yeah,
and I think we talked about initially in our introduction. It's interesting to hear how things finally get made. like this is the 5th rendition of this. We've had to go back and re-edit it, and for time and for different production, we had to go back through the process. But how was it like? So are you doing, you talk about creative and all the, I love how you use discipline. I think I'm a big fan of certain word choices, and being when it comes to discipline, it's you're having to do this consistently, learn from it, and continue to overproduce it. But how did that work with Prudence? Did you do everything for the film? Like, did you direct it, produce it, edit it, everything, or was it? Did you allow other creatives to assist in the process?
I genuinely believe a film is always stronger when you bring in outside talent to help build something. I genuinely believe that's an important part of the process. That said, Prudence. Prudence was kind of something I didn't want to worry about all the business side of it. I didn't want to worry about financiers or studios or producers or anything like that. I kind of just wanted to go back to my roots and have fun.
Yeah.
So I had an incredible director of photography who's also one of the producers on the film. My wife is one of the producers on the film. I wrote it, I directed, I edited, but of course I took my edit to people I trust and got a lot of feedback to make sure. The most fun I had with it was, I guess, costume design. I didn't build the costumes. I mostly found stuff and kind of like patchworked it together. So I can't say I specifically designed it, but I've never really done that much with costumes before. So it was kind of a first time for me. And we did some pretty elaborate costumes with it. So I was really excited to do that. And that's actually where a lot of my energy went to, because it was completely new territory for me. And I was having a lot of fun with it. So
I love costumes. I love the whole costume aspect of movies and theater.
Well, make sure you come to Prudence, because we have some interesting costumes.
Great.
We have a character with like antlers on their head.
Nice.
We have someone with like a crown made out of branches.
Oh, you like really went for it. Like
we went all out with the
You
costumes.
crammed a lot into that 5 minutes.
Oh, yes, we did.
That's fun.
We had some pretty elaborate costumes.
How much did you have to edit off to get it to like a 5 or 6 minute chunk? Did you produce a lot more? Or did you always go with the mindset that it was going to stay in that 5 to 6 minute or 8 minute realm?
So I was actually aiming for 3 minutes.
Okay.
And I failed miserably.
Okay.
So it was actually a little difficult to keep it under 5 minutes, because once I got into post and started putting it together, I realized I was not going to hit my original 3 minute goal.
Right.
And so I kind of took a step back and decided, all right, fine, I'll let certain moments breathe, because I feel like it kind of helps with the atmosphere and the mood and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to go over 5 minutes. And I gave myself a hard and fast 5 minutes, which was actually 4 minutes and 30 seconds, because then credits for 30 seconds. So it was a little bit of a challenge, because I tend to overshoot things. If any of my actors who have ever worked with me are listening to this, they're probably laughing right now, because they're like, yeah, he does like 30 or 40 takes every single time. So
we did it perfectly the first time and he kept going.
Yeah, and I used take 2.
Well, that's got to be such a challenge, though. I think about this all the time with short films. I think it's so impressive when a short film can have the whole plot and resolution and everything, and you get the whole story in a 5 minute span. I couldn't do it. I could never edit something like that.
There's certainly an art to it. And especially now that I'm on the other side of the fence when it comes to film festivals and I'm seeing a lot of submissions, I'm definitely seeing the shorts that can do, as you described, tell a full story, beginning, middle, end, have a character arc, everything, stuff all of that into 10 or 15 minutes or whatever it is. Like, that's very difficult. There is an art to the short film,
and to make it not feel like you crammed too much in and rushed it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. A lot of filmmakers will try to pitch a feature with a short. I'm definitely guilty of this myself. So what they end up doing is they try to stuff a feature film into 15 minutes, and then it's a mess. So it's one of those things when you go to make a short film, you almost need to, if you have a bigger idea, forget it and just focus on that one small moment or scene or whatever it is, and just try to make that as successful as possible.
And I'll be honest, like I'm not, I mean, obviously you're the EP of the Wyoming Film Festival, right?
Yep.
So is there a category or a difference in the categories depending on how long the short is? Or is there a reason to keep it short, or is it more the storytelling? What is it about the timelines that, as it relates to a film festival?
So every film festival is different. So there's a film festival up in Sheridan, Wyoming, and they have a category. It's called like the Goldilocks category, where it's like it's too long to be a short, but too short to be a feature.
Oh, that's fun.
And so for that festival, they will welcome 30-minute, 40-minute long shorts, which for most festivals kind of don't really fit in anywhere.
So there's not necessarily rules, but there's a set of criteria on what films can be submitted into a short category.
Yeah. So for the Wyoming International Film Festival, we accept short films up to 25 minutes is what we do. The exception being Wyoming films. So films shot in Wyoming, we will allow those to be 30 minutes or so. Because now with things like Netflix and Hulu and all this stuff taking off, it's becoming a little bit more predominant that you're seeing short films turn into pilots for television shows. So we are starting to open up the doors for that. We don't quite have the infrastructure yet, but it is on the horizon for us to start accepting pilots and whatnot, because people, instead of trying to go make an indie film now, they're trying to make an indie pilot to get picked up for something like Netflix.
Right. The whole purpose is a little different now.
Yeah, because all these streaming services now, they don't want a movie, they want a show that they can get their audience to binge 8 hours, 9 hours, so on and so forth, and then cancel it after 2 seasons because that's what they do.
That's what you do.
Which one are we talking about? Which one?
All of them.
Anything we enjoy.
I was saying if Squid Games gets canceled or they don't do a second season, I'm gonna be very mad. Or if they end it like, did you watch Squid Games?
I have not finished the last 2 episodes. I got to episode 7 right before I left.
I'm about to ruin it for everybody.
I just watched the first episode.
Did you really?
2 days ago. So.
I have not watched it yet, but it has come up so many times this week. I can't even tell you.
I don't get it. Like we were here 2 years ago and it was Parasite, right? Like Parasite took everything by storm.
Yeah.
It's learning the backstory and some of the stuff. Now it's Squid Games.
This is the most watched Netflix.
I don't get it. Like I honestly don't like watching it. I don't know what the attachment is. Where
it's a
everybody
gladiator match. That's what it is.
Is that what it is?
I mean,
it's like the best way to.
If you think about it, like the idea of a deadly game, like something for Saw or Hunger Games, or even if you go all the way back to like Spartacus or something like that, there is something primal, I guess, in human storytelling where we just like to see 2 contestants fight to the death.
That's a good point.
Reason.
Human beings do gravitate towards these plots. It's something in our nature, I guess.
But we don't see it. Like this is like, how many of these kind of things have you seen in probably the last, like, say, 5 years? I mean, you talk about Gladiator, that's the one that everybody references, and then maybe Spartacus or something along those lines. But outside of that, what has been that medium since then?
10 years. Hunger Games for sure.
Which?
Oh yeah,
Battle Royale.
I didn't even think of that.
What's Battle Royale?
It's a manga that was adapted.
Is it? Is it an anime movie? Is it anime?
No, it's live action. The adaptation's live action.
Yeah.
Rated R
really?
Hunger Games.
Okay.
I'm in.
All right. So apparently there's a lot more than I initially thought there was.
It's a bunch of sci-fi gladiators. That's what it is.
I haven't seen Maze Runner, but isn't it in like that same vein?
Yeah, a little bit. Like a deadly puzzle that they have to overcome.
And I think that what Squid Games did different is, I think in some of the ones you're talking about, they didn't really have any say in it. Right. They did have say in it, right? Like they could volunteer, they could do whatever, they were drafted in. But now this one, they're active participants.
Yeah.
Right. They have to sign up for this.
Yeah. They had multiple chances to walk away from it, and they went for it.
Yeah.
I mean, they signed a paper and everything.
Did you do the currency conversion? Have you done that?
I did.
Yeah.
To see like how much they win.
It was
and
like
stuff?
$80 at the first episode.
Yeah.
That's like what they win
in
lured
US
them
dollars.
with $80.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like
I think it's
45
80.
billion won.
It's like
Sometimes,
100 million won.
Yeah.
But it's like
sometimes people are hard up.
100,000.
And
It's like $40, $80 in US currency.
they're like, I'm willing to die for that.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it was so great. But I love it. I've been a big, huge fan of all the mediums. My uncle asked me the other day, like, how do you watch this stuff? And my question always is, how do you not? There's so much content, which is awesome. Like I love, as Aaron just coined the phrase, right? Brain popcorn.
Brain popcorn.
It's a new.
Relax, and it doesn't have to be necessarily.
I still try to figure it out in my head, but I like it. Like I'm just like, oh, you're just detaching. I always call it the on and off switch. You turn your brain off and watch something.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're watching a documentary or something else. But
Right. When you're maybe tired and it's been a long day and you've been thinking all day and you kind of just want to put something on that you enjoy. Maybe you've already watched it a few times too, so you don't have to think too much about it. Brain popcorn.
what's your go-to like guilty pleasure?
Well, right now I'm rewatching Battlestar Galactica for like the 500th time.
nice.
Is that a TV show?
Come on.
I'm sorry, man. Like I try. Okay, you bring out some Marvel or some DC stuff, I might. But
It's early 2000s. It's kind of when the golden age of television had just started. It was on cable, so it was on Sci-Fi Network. So it still has that tune in next week kind of a feel to it, without a doubt. But it's the remake of the 1980s version of it.
Okay.
But it's just really good. It's really good until like the last couple of seasons. It did Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones. It was like really, really impressive. And then the last season or two just kind of fell off a ledge.
Game of Thrones in space. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Game of Thrones in space.
A little bit more intriguing in my opinion.
Okay.
I've not actually watched Battlestar Galactica. I maybe I've seen like one or two episodes with my parents, but I've never. I'm with you, Carrie.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things where I'm like,
know.
I know that it's popular and I have heard of it.
I was more of a Sequest fan.
Oh,
Nice. So I, going back old references. I love it. Some of that stuff's being re-released, which I'm actually really a huge fan of. I've tried to watch Saved by the Bell again. Those Zach Morris's trash like YouTube things has ruined me for Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell. I have not rewatched.
I watch it all the time.
Saved by the Bell?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, because Mark Paul Gosselaar's doing the podcast with the guy from Zach Morris's Trash.
Is he
and
really?
He's watching the episodes for the first time ever. So he doesn't remember filming any of them or anything. So it's just like getting his take on this, and they do like right a lot of wrongs from the show when they discuss it. They're
okay.
Like,
the parts that didn't age too well.
So they brought in like a Native American for the episode where Running Zach is what the episode's called.
Yes, I forgot about that.
They brought in a Native American guest on the podcast and like got his take on everything. So
I mean, I think that's important. There is a lot of stuff that didn't age well, not just in that show, but in so many shows from the 90s.
My wife just watches Friends again and again and again.
Oh man.
And as great as that show is, man, there's some parts on it's like, damn, dude, that was on TV.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
My wife always watches Seinfeld.
Okay,
like that is one that I could I have tried.
I love Seinfeld.
But I am not like a fan of a laugh track. Yeah. When it is every 5 seconds, there is a laugh track. I can't do it anymore.
I think it was just that was just how it was back then too, that I didn't even think about it. I mean, now if I hear a laugh track, it throws me off a little.
It is weird.
It's a little weird now.
But it's like Kramer enters the door and there's a 5-second laugh. I'm like, he's done this 1,000 times,
walk
man.
through the door.
Right.
And some noodling on a bass guitar. Right. A lot of that. Too.
It's so hard now because of all the content we get to watch. But would that be more of a guilty pleasure, or is it just some of the new stuff is just not as entertaining?
Everything ebbs and flows. I mean, it all depends on what's popular in the culture, what people, think is hot, whatever. I mean, things change. There's music that was considered incredible back in the day that when we hear it now, we're like, man, this is really bad synthy crap.
Yeah.
Hey, New Kids on the Block, Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees, LFO.
Backstreet Boys is
In
still
Town.
touring.
Hey, if I were them, I would milk that as long as I
Are
could
you
too.
kidding? Yeah, absolutely.
No
I mean,
judgment.
Just because you were hot one day and you're not super popular doesn't mean you stop being an artist. Doesn't mean you stop loving what you do and caring.
That's a really good point, though. If you have like the peak of your career because you got really popular with one particular thing, or it doesn't mean that you stop being creative later.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to keep doing it.
I recently tried to watch Cry Macho. Turned it off after like 20 minutes.
Okay.
Did not like it. But I was talking with some other people. They're like, yeah, Clint Eastwood needs to retire. And I was like, man, Clint Eastwood needs to do whatever he feels like doing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm ever going to stop making movies. Doesn't matter if I just make bad movies again and again and again. I'm not going to stop. It's what I do.
But making movies versus being in those movies are two different things.
Also true. I have no idea how someone acts and directs at the same time. It's
especially when they're how old is he? 90?
He is quite old now.
I have no idea anymore. Like when I watch him on film, it's the same face.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's almost like the same role, but his movies are some of the greatest movies of the last probably 5 to 10 years.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down.
So I will still watch them, but I can't do, what was the mule? Couldn't watch it.
Yeah, I couldn't
do it. Him as a drug mule.
Oh, I didn't watch that.
The last one of his that I saw was Gran Torino. I haven't seen one.
Oh, amazing
I
movie.
love Gran Torino.
Gran Torino's great. Sully is
Sully's really good.
pretty
I
good.
forgot that was him. I did see Sully.
Yeah, Sully is good.
Well, didn't he do Richard Jewell?
He did.
I haven't
really
seen that.
liked Richard Jewell.
Richard Jewell.
I liked it too.
Man.
I cried. I'm not gonna lie. You know why? Because Kathy Bates reminded me of my mom.
Aw.
Like she looked and her mannerisms were so much like my own mom that by the end of the movie I was like bawling my eyes out.
I always forget the dude's name. It's always like, is it Walter Paul Hauser?
Paul Walter Hauser.
I always get it wrong. That dude was awesome. He was in Kingdom, which I thought he played an amazing part. He's always played like these little roles. He was in I, Tonya.
Yeah.
As the
I
guy.
thought he was awesome.
Whatever.
But his acting in that was probably like that whole movie, and finally publicizing that this was a hero.
Yeah.
Like he passed away obviously before the film and everything, but to finally get some notoriety for what he did. And I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, so I remember the bombing in Atlanta. So to see that and the culmination of it, and finally get some respect to this person and the mom. But that was
what they
probably
went
like one
through
of my
was
favorites.
awful. It was awful, and I do remember when it happened too. I think I was like 10 though, or maybe 9. Like I was little. And I remember when it was all going down during the Olympics and stuff too in that movie. I think it was great that they showed sort of what
I just get tired of all the controversy. Like you can never put out content anymore without there being some sort of controversy on the backside, right? The Olivia Wilde situation and the reporter and all of it, to me took away from Richard Jewell.
Oh yeah, because the reporter, she passed away a few years ago, right? And so her family came out after Richard Jewell, and they were really angry about the way they depicted her.
I was fine with it. I'm like, whatever. Like, if that's what you take away from that amazing story is a reporter that did whatever, you missed the point.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. The movie is called Richard Jewell, right? But I think that's the big thing is like you were seeing some of these amazing directors. I've always been a huge fan of Tarantino. I will always watch anything that he puts out. Clint Eastwood is definitely one of those, but Sully was amazing. Another story that needed to be told.
One people didn't watch was Trouble with the Curve, and I actually really enjoyed that. It didn't do very well in theaters.
Hey, JT, that was Justin Timberlake, right?
Yeah.
JT.
Yeah.
Hey, baseball. Hey, baseball.
No, it was great, man. I really
thing?
liked that film, and I feel like nobody watched it.
Right.
And the few people who did were like, ew, not
It was a
great.
female baseball scout.
Yeah.
Who was the female lead in that?
Oh man, I cannot remember.
It wasn't Jessica Biel.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get on IMDb for that.
I'm trying. Man, I can picture it.
Amy Adams?
Yeah, Amy Adams.
Amy
Adams. I love that. I mean, but that's what like JT has been a big I love his acting. Alpha Dog, I think was his first movie he did, and it was awesome. Then you had him in Southland Tales, which I still don't. You talk about guilty pleasure. I've watched Southland Tales like 5 times.
Nice.
And I have no idea what's going on.
You know what movie he's in that I've watched probably 20 times?
Trolls. You're back full circle.
The Social Network. The Social Network.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a great movie, though.
Great film.
I don't know. Is it Friends with Benefits or is it the other
with Mila
one?
Kunis?
Yeah.
I've seen that one a few times.
Yeah, that one. Hey, JT and Mila Kunis, man. I like that's.
Don't forget
brain popcorn.
Inside Llewyn Davis.
I haven't seen Inside Llewyn Davis.
Why?
We just watched that one.
Why haven't
That
you?
one was really good.
What is that?
Coen Brothers movie about the a very sad sack folk musician living in the village, played by Oscar Isaac.
Really?
Adam Driver's in it. Justin
Yeah.
Timberlake.
I love Adam.
Carey Mulligan.
Oscar Isaacs.
F.
Adam
Murray
Driver's
Abraham.
in a Coen Brothers movie?
Oh yes.
How have I missed this?
And he sings. He sings.
He sings. Oh, that was funny. That
And
scene
it's the
was
one
funny.
where Oscar Isaac sings. He's a great singer and
No
guitarist.
kidding.
Oh, yeah, Adam
He's got a
Driver.
very deep singing voice. In it. You have to see. Carey Mulligan sings in it.
Oh my God.
It's
Wow, it's
so
great.
good. No, I had never heard of it,
I'm
and
obsessed
he
with
made
the
me watch
soundtrack.
it. Yeah, it was so good, but it was very sad, and I was depressed when it ended. Like it made me just feel
Well,
sad
spoiler,
the whole
dude.
time. I didn't say
Spoiler.
that.
It's not like a movie that you like cry about though. Like
Right. It just
it's
gives you this internal sort of like just sadness.
So
But
is
it's
it
a comedy.
documentary?
It's
so
a
that's what I want
comedy.
to get back
Yeah.
to, right? Like
Yeah.
we talk about Sully, we talk about Richard Jewell. Do you categorize them as a documentary, or is it a
Docudrama.
fiction based?
I mean, they're still technically narrative fiction, no matter how close they're going to follow a story or not.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's a case by case basis, because there's a lot of films that are based on a true story that aren't even close to what
Right.
happened,
Yeah.
versus films that almost feel like a documentary. You know, they'll do things that happened exactly as they did or as reported by people. And then you have films like Midway, which again nobody watched, but it feels over the top. But there are things that happen in that movie that critics were like, "Oh my God, this is so over the top Hollywood." It actually
It actually
That's
happened.
how it
Yeah.
went down.
yeah, like there's one where there was a plane parked on the ship, and some Japanese plane was coming in to do a bombing run, and a crew member jumps in the plane and mans the gun on the back of the plane, shoots down the Japanese fighter, and it literally cuts the plane in half as it's crashing into the ocean. And there was some critic who was like, "Oh my God, this is so over the top
Right,
Hollywood."
it's too far fetched. They
Yeah.
shouldn't have.
And then the captain of the ship like comes down and like promotes him on the spot.
Nice.
It feels like just overblown Hollywood. That happened
what
exactly as that
That's
is portrayed
crazy.
in the movie.
Yeah, you'd have to put that in the movie. I mean, that's insane.
It just, when you're watching it, you're like, this is the most unbelievable thing
Right.
I've ever seen.
We've been so desensitized. Like that's like
Maybe that's
whoever
it,
wrote
yeah.
that is a genius. I would never have thought about that.
We've seen it
it's
all.
actually a real thing. No, it's not. Like, that would never really happen.
So I think it's such a case by case basis when you're talking about narrative, but when you're talking about documentary, the exact opposite is true, where you have, in my opinion, a moral obligation not to hype things up. You need to be a little bit more earnest and genuine. My wife is more in the documentary world, so I see a lot of documentaries. She's on 2 different docuseries on Netflix, and it's nuts, some of the vetting that they have to do to make sure every single detail is correct, like down to they're doing recre and one of the actors is smoking a cigarette, and then they had to like call up all the real life people and be like, did this guy smoke
Oh,
in real life? Because if he didn't smoke in real life, they can't show him smoking a
Yeah.
cigarette.
that's good to hear, though, that they put so much work into actually making sure
Yeah.
the facts are straight, though. That's how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're going to portray, especially a real person, you
Yeah.
know?
I love it. I think you said a moral obligation. I think of it as just integrity.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's the
absolutely.
personal integrity you have to tell the right story and for the right reasons. And I think that's what, when you have that narrative fiction, you can have that. And we kind of look at it like, did it happen? My biggest thing was the trial of the Chicago 5. 7. Watching that, I'll be honest, like Sacha Baron Cohen just ruined it for me.
Really?
His Chicago, or his accent in that is so bad. I'm sorry, I'm trying.
Yeah.
But Eddie
So that's
Redmayne
Like
and
Iggy's
his
favorite.
Okay, we need to
it
replace
takes away
Carrie.
from the story to me. Like, this is a real thing. And when you talk about like Sacha Baron Cohen, and it is, and that's where we go with the brain popcorn. If you detach I
I'm a
understand.
total Sorkin fanboy.
Me too.
But I couldn't like listening to Sacha Baron Cohen in those monologues or doing a stand-up comedy. It took away from the story that I wanted to hear and wanted to know.
Really?
Right. I didn't need the backstory. I'll be perfectly honest. Like I didn't know what happened. So that was my first time like being exposed to it and like watching that as entertainment. I really didn't feel like I understood the entire story and what really happened.
But the real Abby Hoffman was a firecracker like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he went maybe a little bit more over the top with it because he is Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like a complete stretch.
Well,
Yeah.
so this is my thing, right? So one of my favorites, I think it's The Fighter, right, with Mark Wahlberg,
Yep.
right, Christian Bale.
Not you.
When you see like the behind the scenes or like after the movie, and you see the two of them side by side,
Yeah.
it is the same person.
Yeah.
Right. Them talking together, he's mirroring him pretty well. If you put Sacha Baron Cohen next to the real person, would it be a mirror image?
I don't know Abby Hoffman enough to
Right.
know
I
what way
think-
to-
I mean,
think-
there's plenty
Right,
of documentary footage of him from the time that exists.
Yeah,
that
I
you
feel
could
like I looked
research
it up
that.
as soon as I watched it because I do like to look up the actual people.
But
if I'm
that's
not
the thing, right?
familiar.
Is when you call it a narrative, that narrative fiction, my immediate thought after watching the content is I immediately get up and start Googling it.
Yeah, me
Right.
too.
And try to look for first, is there a real documentary on it that I can watch that gives me more of the integrity and the truth behind it? So I can really feel like that was a great replication or authentic portrayal.
I love it when they show you in the credits, like the photos of
Right.
the
Yeah.
actual people
Yep.
or
Yeah.
like newsreel footage or whatever they might have about, the real,
Yeah, that's always helpful.
about what you just watched.
Yeah.
Kaufman. Yeah,
I love it
Kaufman
when they do
was
that.
good. Kaufman wrote that. He wrote "Steal This Book," didn't he?
Steal
Was it
this,
either one? "Steal This Book"?
steal this book, or is it steal this movie?
I think it was "Steal This Book," and then I
And then
think
they
people
made
then they
steal
made
this.
Steal This
They
movie,
made
yeah.
steal
Yeah.
this movie. Yep.
I just remember that was my first experience of. We found that in the library when I was in like
Who is
elementary
it?
school.
Abby Hoffman.
Abby
The
Sacha
character,
Baron,
or
yeah.
not the character, the actual person.
The actual person,
Don't
and it
get me
had all
wrong,
these.
like,
It had
a
all.
real person that did those real things.
It had all these like tips for like sneaking, like past the government and getting things for free and doing all these like it had all these. So it was banned from a lot of places and stuff.
So the question is, did you steal it?
Yeah.
So I did not steal the book, but I did try one of the things from the book when I was in middle school.
Nice.
It had
What did you try?
It's
It was so
anarchist
stupid.
cookbook for
Yeah,
middle
exactly.
schoolers.
it was so dumb.
Here's how you can get away with leaving your class.
So we figured out that if you mailed your friend a letter, but you put your address as if you put their address as the return address and then you didn't put a stamp on it,
Mhm.
they get the letter for free. So my friend and I would just mail each other letters all the time,
Oh, nice.
putting the other person's as
Were
the
you like?
return
Did
address.
you guys live like next to each other though?
No, it was like across town. So dumb. And we're like, yeah.
Hang
we
on, your
totally-
letters are coming in a few days.
The first time that letter showed up in the mail, I was like, whoa, that actually worked. That's crazy. We just overthrew the government.
We just overthrew the government.
Wow.
So Rudi, we have a minute left and I want to ask you one question, if that's okay, Carrie.
Hey, it's all you.
So
man.
we've talked about all of the people that you could potentially meet at Tallgrass and other film festivals. Let's say you met the actor or actress with whom you would most love to work. Cost is not a factor. Their time is not a factor. Who is that actor or actress?
Well, Jimmy Stewart's dead.
Okay.
That's a good one.
The living one, because I asked Greg Sestero the same question during the Q&A last night that he did, and he said living or dead, and I was like, okay, doesn't matter. And his was Brando. So
Oh.
Jimmy Stewart, but who living?
Man, that's such a tough one because there's so many actors that I would absolutely love to work with. There's actually a Bollywood actor, Shah Rukh Khan,
Okay.
Oh.
and he's probably one of the most famous actors in the world, being that he's out of Bollywood. India has an audience of literally like 1.5 billion people, but he's been in a couple of Hollywood movies, but usually really small roles. I would love to see him in a leading role in a proper Hollywood film.
Excellent.
He's a phenomenal actor. So
Awesome.
he's like the Tom Cruise of India. So
Write
that's a
something
great
for him.
answer.
Yeah. Write something for him.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So obviously, before we bounce out of here and get you out to your next thing, what's the next thing for Prudence? You said Utah, right?
Yep, Provo, Utah for Film Quest.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a way for people to see it on a digital market yet, or is it still just doing the film circuit and then?
I have to keep it off the internet so I can get into film festivals, but as soon as that is done, absolutely. Of course, Tallgrass is doing virtual, so you can watch it virtually at Tallgrass.
Oh. It's also at the Netherlands Film Festival, which Project Nerd is covering,
Yeah,
and we're doing interviews for that, and that is on November 6th. So
Perfect.
That's awesome. And look out for Chippy.
Yeah.
I mean, Chippy. Bonus thing. Hey, watch Prudence get Chippy on the side. Hey guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank you so
with
much for having
You hung
me.
out with us for a long time.
That was
this
so
was cool.
This was fun.
You're absolutely amazing. We really appreciate it. Again, we really appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with more exclusive content from the 19th annual Tallgrass Film Festival here in Wichita, Kansas.